I was reaching for a paper towel when Dylan cracked his joke. "Still tinkering with that little app of yours, Curtis?" He said it with that smirk he always had, when he wanted everyone to know he was the show. The gravy boat was sweating on the tablecloth, and the turkey steam was fogging up Marjorie's glasses, but everyone heard him. TV was on mute, football highlights flickering like a background laugh track that never showed up. Quick note, before we go on, tell me which city or country you're watching from. My name's Curtis. I'm 47 now, but this happened at a Thanksgiving when I was 26. We were at my wife's parents' place in Cranford, New Jersey. Her mom, Marjorie, liked rules and seating charts. Her brother Dylan liked money and pretending he had some. I was the quiet one with good manners and a wrench in my trunk, always wiping up spills or carrying dishes like I was auditioning to stay. Marjorie kept pouring wine like it was a fundraiser and fussing over Dylan's newest venture, some sports media thing he cooked up with a college buddy who didn't show. Every year, it was a new story. Every year, Marjorie floated him another loan. She called it bridging traction. I looked across the table. Dylan had leaned back like he owned the place. I glanced at Lena, my wife at the time, and waited for her to say something. She didn't. She gave me that tight little smile she used when her family was rude, but technically civil. I wiped my hands on my napkin, looked Dylan in the eye, and said, "Actually, I sold it last week." Forks paused. Even the old furnace 3 rooms over seemed to hold its breath. Dylan chuckled. "Nice. What did they give you? Enough to replace that '97 Tacoma?" He did air quotes around sold, like it was cute. Marjorie looked at me like I'd just tracked mud onto the rug. Lena didn't blink. 142 million, I said. That silence didn't surprise me. I'd known that sound since I was a kid. I grew up in a single-story ranch outside Dayton, Ohio. Brown paneling, cracked driveway, window AC that rattled when it kicked on. If you walked into our house and drew a ranking chart on the wall, it would have gone Dad first, Earl, worry lines deep enough to hold sawdust. Mom second, Ruth, floating around my younger sister Kenzie like a moon locked to a planet. Then me, quiet in the corner, useful as long as I didn't need too much. Kenzie was the golden one. She had a voice that could hit the back row of a church with no mic. She got the brand new Huffy with the tassels, the voice lessons from some lady in Cincinnati, the choir trip to Minneapolis that took 3 fundraisers and Mom's vacation days. And hey, she earned it. She was good. Every time she nailed a solo, Mom clutched her chest like she'd just watched the touchdown that won the game. Me? I was the kid who didn't break things, who figured out how to fix the dryer when Dad didn't have time. I got tools from garage sales, bent my knuckles on rusty bolts, pulled out carburetors just to learn what was inside. When something broken started working again, that felt like control. It felt like proof I could make something better, even if no one clapped. If I brought home an A, Mom barely looked up from her crossword. "That's nice, honey. Can you run out and grab bread?" If Kenzie mailed a postcard from a choir camp, we baked a damn cake, chocolate with sprinkles. That stuck with me longer than it should have. By 15, I stopped asking for much. Took a stocking job at Pick and Save after school, saved every dime in a Folgers can under my bed, and bought a used desktop from a guy who said it still mostly ran. The side panel was missing, and the fan screamed like a lawnmower, but it booted. My shop teacher, Mr. Tilden, guy with a handlebar mustache and burn scars on both hands, tossed me a paperback on C++. Said I looked like someone who'd get it. I didn't. First 6 chapters read like alien language. But then one night something clicked. Loops, conditions, logic trees. It felt like sorting wrenches by size and finding the one that finally fit. Dad wasn't cold, just worn down. He worked maintenance at a distribution center and came home with his shoulders hanging low. Sometimes he'd ruffle my hair and say, "You'll do fine, kid," which really meant, "I got enough weight on my back. Please don't add more." I never did. Kenzie kept climbing. State competitions, vocal scholarships, shiny Letterman jacket with a treble clef on the sleeve. I didn't begrudge her, but every win of hers felt like another step back for me. There was only so much air in the room, and I learned early how to hold my breath. At 19, I went to community college because that was what we could afford, and because Kenzie's out-of-state auditions had already eaten the better part of the year's budget. I didn't blame her. I just didn't ask. I loaded trucks from midnight to 6, took morning classes on 3 hours of sleep. Ate cold burritos in the back stairwell between Econ and Intro to Java. There's no ceremony in that grind, no applause, just vending machines that steal your quarters and classmates who never learn your name. But when you live in the edges that long, you develop a skill. Listening, really listening, to what people say, and more importantly, what they mean when they don't say anything at all. Every shrug, every silence, every polite smile that doesn't touch the eyes, it's data. It teaches you how not to ask for things that won't be given. The fuel I ran on back then wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was a list I kept in my head, quietly, like tally marks on a prison wall. Times they talked over me. Moments I got the crumbs and smiled anyway. Jobs I did without thanks. Ideas I shelved because they weren't convenient for someone else. That list got longer every month. One night, I stayed up late fixing a busted toaster from the neighbors. It sparked and nearly lit the towel on fire. I laughed, rewired it, and made it hum like new. That was the moment I realized I didn't care if anyone saw. I just wanted to build something that worked. I didn't wait for praise. I didn't wait for permission, and I sure as hell didn't wait for Marjorie or Dylan to validate anything I ever touched. I wiped my hands dry in her kitchen, looked around the dining room, and felt the same exact thing I felt back in Dayton, standing outside the circle. Lena was the kind of woman who had color-coded tabs in her planner and ordered her iced tea with exact ice measurements. I met her when we were both 22, both at a friend's cookout behind a muffler shop in Kettering. She liked that I listened. I liked that she looked me in the eye when she talked. She worked in logistics at a regional shipping company. Smart, steady, always had a plan. Her mom, Marjorie, approved of me right away. I said please and thank you, stood when she walked into the room, and fixed a slow drip leak under her sink without asking for a wrench that fit. Marjorie said I had humble charm. What that really meant was I wasn't a threat. I knew my lane. I didn't interrupt Dylan. That counted for a lot in her world. Lena and I got married in a VFW hall with half-wilted centerpieces and a DJ who thought line dances were the height of sophistication. Marjorie handled the classy parts, which meant she picked the wine, rejected half my guest list, and circled the silverware during rehearsal dinner like a drill sergeant. I kept my mouth shut and helped tear down the chairs. I took a warehouse routing job the next month, mapped delivery paths, filled in on loading docks when people called out. After dinner, I studied code until my eyes blurred. On weekends, I did small engine repairs out of our apartment carport. Push mowers, trimmers, the occasional scooter. I'd quote $50 and knock it out for 30 if the person seemed decent. At every family dinner, Dylan had a new project. A podcast, a merchandise line, a streaming channel about betting stats. Marjorie ate it up with a spoon. I said things like, sounds interesting, and pass the salt. But the idea that stuck with me wasn't loud. It came from guys at work. Big guys, tired guys, chugging soda at 8 a.m., skipping lunch, dragging themselves home like their bodies were on strike. I started thinking about a way to help people not fall apart. The basics: sleep, movement, water, food, not lectures, not guilt, just small nudges. I started building a simple tool, Habit Forge. Used a busted ThinkPad with a line down the middle of the screen. Wrote after midnight. Tested it with 2 guys from the warehouse. One of them said it felt like the app wasn't judging him. That mattered to me. I wanted it to feel like a coworker tapping your shoulder, not a boss breathing down your neck. The first version was clunky as hell. Gray background, check boxes, no flair. But it worked. Simple reminders like water, then coffee. Stretch while the microwave runs. Phone down 5 minutes before bed. That kind of stuff. The basics, done better. I threw up some basic ads and let it run. First month, $340. Might as well have been $1 million. I just stared at the number like it was trying to tell me something. Marjorie called later and asked if I could help the family by taking photos at Dylan's launch event for his gear blog. You know your way around a phone, right, Curtis? I brought my own sandwich so I wouldn't feel weird about grabbing food from the catering table. Habit Forge kept growing. 400 downloads turned into 2,800. Then 11,000, not viral, just steady. People liked that it didn't talk down to them. They liked tapping a little circle and feeling like they did one thing right that day. At dinner the next month, Dylan was pitching a fantasy sports platform, with integrated merch and maybe NFTs if the market flips. Marjorie asked him if he wanted to start a family trust. Then she turned to me and asked, "How's your little app?" "Growing," I said. "That's nice," she replied, already looking back at Dylan. I kept coding, made a feedback form. Users said they liked the tone. Casual, friendly, not bossy. I didn't hire a designer. I just Googled colors that didn't look like hospital walls and went with navy and orange. At night, I read every email we got. Some were typos and spam. Some were from people who said things like, "This helped me get through my divorce," or "First time I drank water before coffee in a year." I pushed back from my desk and rubbed my eyes. The ad dashboard had stalled again, and I was down to 3 working keys on the ThinkPad that didn't stick. That's when the email landed. Subject line, "Exploring strategic options for HabitForge," came from a product manager at some mid-sized outfit in Chicago. Polite, polished, filled with words like synergy and alignment. I didn't think much of it. Figured it was just another cold pitch. But something about the tone felt like they already knew where the numbers were heading. We met a week later, downtown office. All glass walls and espresso machines that looked like something from a chemistry lab. The chairs probably cost more than my truck. The guy leaned in, tapped the screen, and said, "We see room to scale this rapidly. Gamify wellness, drive daily opens, rewarded views. Make it stickier." He smiled like that was genius. Then he dropped the number, 38 million. I felt my ears ring. That's the kind of number that makes you stop breathing for a second. But then he started talking about engagement levers and how they'd own product direction going forward. They wanted full control, ads on the dashboard, promos between habits, surveys disguised as nudges. It felt like breaking something that actually worked just to chase clicks. So I said no. He blinked. "Is that a no for now or a no-no?" I said, "It's a no." My hands shook in the elevator on the way down. Not from fear, but from the wild idea I just told a plane mid-takeoff to turn around. That no lit a flare. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a founder at a small health tech firm out in Portland. They didn't say synergy. They said useful. They liked the tone of HabitForge. Said it felt human. They weren't out to gut it. We talked for hours. About the difference between shame and support. About reminders that felt like a nudge, not a push. They offered a $6.5 million round. I kept majority. Signed the deal in my kitchen while Lena reheated leftovers behind me. First hire was a junior dev named Carla. Quiet, brilliant, never missed a semicolon. Then Jake, fresh out of a boot camp. Nina ran support like it was personal. Raj and QA sent bug reports that read like love letters. And Ashley, part-time designer, turned the app from a spreadsheet with buttons into something people actually wanted to tap. Lena told her mom I'd taken investors. That's the word she used, like I caught something contagious. Marjorie called and said, "So, are we in debt now?" I said, "No, we're in business." Dylan texted the next day. "Ever think about fantasy sports hydration leagues?" Then he tried to bundle his blog and newsletter into a package deal. I didn't answer. Revenue kept climbing. 40,000 in monthly recurring revenue, then 75, then 120. We added charts that were private by default, habit check-ins, nothing preachy. A regional gym chain called about co-branding. An insurer wanted to offer premium discounts for streaks. I said we'd think about it, if we controlled the data. If not, no deal. At night, I still read every customer email. One guy said the app helped him stay sober after a rough patch. A single mom said it got her out of bed on days she wanted to quit. Another wrote, "This stupid circle reminded me to drink water the day I signed my divorce papers. That shouldn't matter, but it did. That's what made it worth it. Not the charts, not the offers. The people." We finally moved out of my kitchen. Rented a small office above a nail salon in an old strip mall. Smelled like acetone and ambition. The landlord gave us a discount because I fixed his thermostat the first week we moved in. He said, "You guys gonna last?" I said, "We already are." Fridays we did pizza. Found a joint 2 doors down with greasy tables and real cheese. Carla brought her dog once. Nobody complained. No slogans on the wall. Just people who gave a damn. Every family dinner still sounded the same. Dylan talking runway. Marjorie laying out strategies like she was on a board of directors. I'd get a pat on the head and a casual, "How's your little app doing?" like they were being generous just remembering I was in the room. Still plugging away, I'd say. Same tone I used when a wrench slipped and split my knuckle open. Matter of fact, keep it moving. They didn't ask about customers, or the team, or what it felt like to turn down $38 million and keep going. They asked if I'd seen Dylan's new logo. After Dylan's logo talk, I went back to the office and kept my head down. That turned out to be the right move, because Habit Forge didn't slow, it jumped. We crossed 1 million monthly active users without fireworks or a countdown clock. One day the dashboard refreshed and there it was. 7 figures where there used to be hope and guesswork. Annual recurring revenue cleared 12 million not long after. Clean, boring math. I still drove the Tacoma, same boots, same jacket that smelled faintly like motor oil and pizza. It kept me sane. I didn't want my life to feel louder just because the numbers did. We integrated with wearables and added a simple mental check-in. 3 taps, name the mood. Pick one small step, nothing dramatic. Usage spiked hard after lunch hours and late Sunday nights. People were honest when nobody was watching. That told me everything. That was also when the anxiety crept in. Not panic, more like a low buzz that never shut off. Every good thing felt like it came with a test I didn't know I'd signed up for. So I booked therapy on Wednesday mornings and blocked the calendar like it was a board meeting. The therapist was direct. Middle-aged guy, calm voice, no nonsense. Second session in, he stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Why do you say we when you mean they and they when you mean me?" I didn't have an answer. I just stared at the carpet and nodded. At home, Lena noticed everything and liked none of it. The late nights, the slack pings during dinner, the way I scheduled my dad's cardiology follow-ups without missing a beat, but forgot a wine tasting for her friend's bridal shower. She said I was obsessed with strangers' water intake. I said, "I'm building something real." She said, "So am I, and you're not here." We started sleeping back to back. No fight, just distance measured in inches. Marjorie's tone changed once the headlines started popping up. Not praise, interest. She dropped hints about interfamily investment, like it was a favor to me. "Just a little boost so Dylan can get to his next stage," she said, smiling the way people do when they already expect yes. Dylan was more direct. He asked me to guarantee a $180,000 loan. Said the bank loves founders signing for each other. He talked fast, like momentum itself would force my hand. I said no to both. That's when I became aloof. Marjorie used the word over roast chicken, like it was a diagnosis. Curtis seems aloof lately. It tasted like being told to smile while someone slid their hand into your pocket. At work, we kept building. We added a satellite team of 9 in Boise because the talent was real and the rent wasn't insane. 14 full-timers total. No motivational posters. No mission statement on the wall. Friday pizza, bug bounties, honest feedback. People fixed what broke and owned it. Then a hospital group reached out. Not flashy, no buzzwords. Just a director and a nurse manager on the call, both tired in a way I recognized. They wanted to use Habit Forge for post-discharge routines and chronic care plans, medication timing, movement prompts, hydration, sleep. No ads, no data resale. They talked about relapse and readmissions like it kept them up at night. My gut lit up. We talked for 4 months. Long calls, long documents, long pauses. We argued about data boundaries and consent screens and what happened if the partnership ever ended. They wanted the team intact. We wanted the product intact. For once, everyone at the table meant the same words when they said care. At home, Lena watched me prep for those calls and said, "You look more alive talking to them than you do with me." I didn't deny it. I just packed my laptop and headed out. That night, Dylan texted again. A shorter message this time. "Just think about it." I didn't respond. Wednesday therapy came around. The therapist leaned back and said, "What do you think happens if you stop trying to keep everyone comfortable?" I thought about my dad's appointments on my calendar, the Boise team's faces on video calls, the hospital group asking hard questions because the answers mattered. I thought about Lena staring at the wall while I typed. "I lose something," I said. He nodded. "And you gain something." That evening, I pulled into the driveway later than usual. House lights were on. Lena's car was there. I sat in the Tacoma for a minute, engine ticking, and felt the weight of everything I was carrying. Then I shut the truck off, grabbed my bag, and walked inside to see what was left to say. The hospital deal landed the same week we locked final terms. I signed the last doc in the early morning, still in flannel pants, coffee gone cold next to the keyboard. It was quiet, just a few dull clicks. No parade, no confetti, just done. We closed for $142 million. First thing I did was make sure the team got theirs. Bonuses, real ones, options that meant something. No golden handcuffs, just a reason to stay. We kept the roadmap sane. No 5-week death sprints, no hustle culture crap. They earned it. Every line of code, every bug they squashed at 11:58 p.m. After fees and taxes, I cleared about $88 million. I walked out of the lawyer's office, got in the Tacoma, and just sat there. Engine off, a C off, no music. It was like someone turned down the volume on a radio that had been blaring since I was 12. I didn't call Marjorie. I didn't call Dylan. I drove home, parked, walked into the kitchen, and told Lena. She blinked twice. "Wow," she said. Then, "Think we could remodel the downstairs? Maybe finally upgrade circles, if you know what I mean." I didn't say anything, just nodded and grabbed a water from the fridge. I called my dad that night, told him the number. He paused, then said, "Kid, I knew you'd be fine." For the first time in my life, that line didn't feel like a shrug. It felt like a stamp. The kind you put on something finished and solid. Therapy started hitting different. We unpacked everything. Years of rooms I walked into, already trying to prove I belonged. I told the therapist about every thanks but no thanks. Every dinner where I played second string to a guy who hadn't launched a single thing past a Canva mock-up. "You can quit auditioning," he said. That line hit me like a nail through the boot. Sharp, sudden, and all the way in. Then Thanksgiving crept up. We hadn't done Christmas with my side of the family in years. Lena said it was easier to just go along with the rhythm her mom already had. The rhythm meant Marjorie's house, her china, her bird, her seating chart, her script. My therapist said, "Treat it like field work, no expectations, just data." So I booked a room at a hotel off the interstate. Not the guest room with Dylan's old football trophies still staring at you from the shelf, like they're judging your career. I didn't bring a watch. I didn't bring a speech. I brought an index card with 4 rules written in Sharpie and folded in half in my coat pocket. Be brief, don't explain. Leave when the old script starts. No second performance. The night before, Marjorie texted, "Wonderful. Dylan has big news too." I could almost hear the cymbals behind it. Dylan news always came with a soundtrack. Marjorie humming in the kitchen, Lena smoothing the tablecloth, everyone bracing for the genius we'd all somehow missed again. I replied, "Looking forward to it." I wasn't. The morning of, I got dressed like I always did. Boots, button down. Jacket with frayed cuffs I couldn't bring myself to replace. Picked up a pecan pie from the grocery store. Store brand, no fancy box. I wasn't walking in there trying to impress anybody. That chapter was closed. I drove to the house early on purpose, sat at the curb, and watched the same autumn flag flap in the breeze that had been there every November since Lena and I got married. It didn't feel like home. It felt like a job I used to have. I unfolded the index card in my pocket, read the rules again, put it back. Then I stepped out of the truck, grabbed the pie, and walked up the sidewalk toward the front door. Not to prove anything, not to show off a number, just to see if they'd try to run the same playbook again, and what I'd do when they did. I walked through the front door with a store-bought pecan pie in one hand and a folded index card in the other. Kept the pie, pocketed the card. The smell hit first. Those citrus candles Marjorie loved, like lemon was gonna cover up 20 years of power plays and forced smiles. The place looked exactly the same. Dylan's framed Top 40 Under 40 to Watch magazine cover still sat on the mantel, crooked and dusty. The good plates were already out, white with gold trim, used exactly 3 times a year. Linen napkins folded like swans. Seating told the whole story. Before anyone spoke, Dylan at the head of the table, Marjorie to his right. Lena sat between her mother and me like she'd drawn the short straw at a mediation table. I got the chair by the hallway, where the light flickered when the furnace kicked on. Dylan started before the green beans made it around. So, I've been deep in validation cycles for a verticalized gear marketplace. The outdoor crowd's ripe for disruption. We're seeing early traction. Marjorie nodded like she was at a damn State of the Union. Just need a push to dominate Q1, he added, grinning like it was already done. I passed the rolls, didn't say a word. Halfway through the meal, Marjorie turned to me, tipped her head the same way she always did when setting up a jab, and asked, "Are you still helping people drink water?" I said, "Something like that." Dylan chuckled. Loud, fake. "Still wasting your time on that little app of yours?" Same line, same tone, same guy. I looked him dead in the eye. Sold it. He blinked, then laughed harder. "You're kidding. 142 million, I said. Fork stopped. Chews hung in mid-bite. The only sound in the room was the TV in the next room. Muted football highlights rolling like background static. Marjorie set her wine glass down too hard. Who would pay that kind of money for reminders to hydrate? I slid my phone across the table, opened the banking app, held it up for one beat. Just long enough, no one said congratulations. Dylan broke the silence. "Okay, but who bought it? Is there a clawback? What's it look like after taxes? Like, are we talking full control, or what's your vesting term?" "Done deal. All clean," I said. "Already allocated what matters. Dad's long-term care, some community clinics. That's the list." He leaned forward. "Well, damn, man. Maybe you can help me bridge inventory for my Q1 launch? Just a short-term float. We can do a bundle cross-promotional." Marjorie jumped in like she'd been waiting for the right angle. "Maybe this is the moment we talk about keeping things in the family. A structured loan could help stabilize Dylan's momentum. Say $250, not a gift. Just responsible family planning. That part still makes me shake my head. No apology, no well done, no we were wrong. Just the same old roles, same old script, with a new ask slapped on top. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just picked up my napkin, folded it, and stood. "I kept the lights on in rooms you never saw," I said. "I'm done auditioning." Then I walked out. No one followed, not even Lena. I made it to the sidewalk before the air hit different. Cold, sharp, clean. The pie was still on the counter. I didn't go back for it. The next morning, my phone lit up before the coffee finished dripping. Marjorie first. Then again. Then a longer one. I'd embarrassed the family. I'd made Dylan look small. I'd forgotten who brought me in. The quotes were hers, not mine. Each message landed heavier than the last, like she was stacking plates and daring me to flinch. I didn't reply. 2 days later, a thick envelope showed up at my door. Law firm letterhead. Formal tone. The family, capital F, was requesting $2.4 million as repayment for years of support, housing, and brand uplift. Brand uplift. I laughed once, sharp and loud, then set the letter on the counter and called my attorney. He didn't laugh. He asked for time. That afternoon, he sent back a polite decline with an attachment. The attachment was a ledger. 10 years of transfers. Bridge loans to Dylan. Rent checks. Inventory buys. Tuition payments. Car notes. Emergency float money. Page after page. The last line read, $0 transferred to Curtis. My attorney added one sentence. If pursued, this record becomes public. They withdrew by the end of the week. No apology, no clarification. Just silence that felt like a door closing from the other side. At home, Lena tried one more angle. She said maybe I should help for the optics, that people were talking, that it might smooth things over if I showed goodwill. I told her I was done being a prop. We tried counseling, neutral office, neutral couch. 2 sessions in, she said out loud, what had been sitting between us for years. She couldn't choose between me and her mother's approval. She said it like a fact, not a confession. I nodded. There wasn't anything left to argue. We divorced the next spring. No kids, no fireworks. We split the house equity clean. She kept the holiday china and the dining set that only came out when someone needed to feel important. I kept the truck and my peace. I packed my things in daylight and didn't look back when I closed the door. Dylan unraveled fast. A supplier stiffed him on a shipment and he lost it in his shop. Someone filmed him pacing and shouting about fake founders and rigged systems. The video hit social media before the echo in the room died. 2 small investors pulled out. The landlord didn't renew the lease. His storefront went dark by the end of summer. Marjorie refinanced her house to cover his debts. She stopped answering neighborhood emails, missed a couple HOA payments. The house went on the market that fall, price cut twice before anyone bid. I drove past it once by accident and didn't slow down. I started visiting my dad more. We fixed a lamp together in his living room one afternoon. Bad socket, loose wire, simple fix. We didn't talk about money. We talked about the weather and the way his hands still remembered how to work. When the lamp clicked on, he smiled and said, "There we go. That was enough." I wrote a quiet check to a local clinic, 1.2 million spread over 3 years. Routine care, recovery planning, no naming rights, no press. Just a letter asking them to use it where it helped people not fall through cracks. I mailed it myself and didn't tell anyone. The noise died down after that. No more texts. No more letters. No more surprise asks dressed up as family concern. One evening, I stood in my garage, the truck idling, boxes stacked behind me from the last of the move. I looked at the empty space where things used to pile up. Expectations, favors, roles I never auditioned for again. I shut the garage door, got in the truck, and drove away. I didn't throw a party. I didn't buy a boat or build a trophy shelf. I just stopped standing where I wasn't seen and started building rooms where I was. There was a kid named Mateo, stocking pallets 3 blocks from where our old office used to be. Sharp eyes, quick hands. He asked better questions than most people twice his age. I brought him coffee once and told him what my shop teacher told me. Read the code out loud until it makes sense. He shipped his first tool in 6 months and didn't wait for anyone to clap. He knew what I had to learn the hard way. You don't need permission to be proud. A year later, Marjorie mailed a letter, cream paper, cursive handwriting, said she was sorry for how she treated me, that she misjudged the order of things. Her words, not mine. I read it once and slid it into a drawer. I didn't slam the drawer, just closed it. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. Dylan sent a text not long after, said he was trying again, something about a new idea and seed angels who get it. I told him I wished him well. I didn't send money. He left it on read. People love the headline. They want the number. They think that's the lesson. It's not. The truth is I showed up when nobody clapped, answered when nobody asked, built something on tired nights when nothing made sense, not to prove anything, just to get one part of life working right. The revenge, if you want to call it that, wasn't the money. It was walking out of a room that only valued me when it wanted something, and never walking back in for the old role. I still drive the Tacoma. I still bring store-bought pie to gatherings because I've never been fancy and I don't need to be. I sit where I can see the door. I don't audition. If you were the kid who always heard, "You'll be fine," here's what that can mean. You're the one who learns to be okay without applause. You're the one who figures out how to carry things alone. Maybe your version of walking out isn't Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe it's saying no to one more quick ask, or moving your tools to your own bench, or telling a lawyer to send the ledger. Either way, it's not about making them feel small. It's about finally feeling your own size and letting the rest of the room adjust. Or not.